Welcome back to Cars Plus Classics, and today is going to be a really special review. This is the review of the magnificent P10 Nissan Primera, and not just any P10 Primera. This is the special edition, right in their production SRI model. This is a tribute video to a vehicle I've owned and loved, but unfortunately may soon be selling. The Primera was released, and it could have been called a Bluebird, but they released it because they wanted to say this car is new and it's the best in its class. I mean, they call it Primera. Primera is Spanish for the word first. To me, I associate it with being first in its class, and in many ways, it absolutely was. I mean, this came along, and bear in mind at the time, the Cavalier and the Sierras were, the class best. This came along and destroyed those two. In fact, it was, in terms of the way it drove, it was up there, in fact, beaten the Peugeot 405. Now, don't get me wrong. In those days, Nissan still had a reputation for being solid and friendly and stoic, and as a result, the Primera kind of, despite being fantastic, didn't get quite the reputation it deserved. It was a good car, don't get me wrong, but it was taken for granted a bit. Again, ended up as a taxi driver's favourite. And the sales reps did like them, but not in the same way they like their Mondeos at this point, and the Sierras or Vectras, and the Cavaliers for that matter. But here's the thing. Although these cars were very popular at one point, and then they dwindled as a result of being overused or used as taxis and trashed and used as banger racers, the ones that have remained are really loved, and this is a good example of that particular model. Now, when this car was released in 1990, they had a different range of engines. You had 1.6s with a carburetor engine, which later became the cat engine, which wasn't very good. Then you had a 2-litre SR20 on the automatics, as well as the fire-breathing EGT, or EZX as it was originally called. Now, they released the Series 2, which I don't really know what the difference was over the Series 1, if I'll be completely honest with you. Maybe change of colours and slight different engine changes. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but yeah, there wasn't really much to point out, especially in the styling department. And then you got the final one, which is the Series 3, and it really was different. However, this was the end of production. Now, bear in mind, it was released in 1990, faced it in around 1993, and again in 1995, until 1996, probably very early 1997. And this was a SRI model released in 1995 as a kind of limited run, should we say, as a kind of end of production of the P10. And it was a EGT Lite. It was a lesser model for the EGT. It absolutely was. But it was still a fantastic car. It had most of the EGT, but without quite the horsepower that EGT had, and some of the toys as well. Like, it doesn't have air conditioning on a lovely hot day like this, which is a bit annoying. But you have the sunroof, so it's okay. But the Primera really was a fantastic car in its class. And actually, you find that compared to the P11 that took over, which was still a fantastic car, this was still a bit better. The P11 did improve things here and there, don't get me wrong. And by the time we got to the P12, it completely lost its way. And personally, I'm not a big fan of the P12. It might be a very good car, but it's nothing compared to the P10 or the P11. But in terms of being a Nissan, this done it brilliantly. And actually, this is a brilliant car to drive. You'll find a bit later how brilliant this car is to drive. But believe me, this is an absolutely magnificent car to drive. And I've been a very proud owner of this car for the last few years. But unfortunately, owing to a change in my circumstances, I maybe having to sell this car soon. And it's a shame, really, because I really didn't want to do that. I bought this car just before the ultra emission zone in London expanded, in the hope of kind of saving it from an expansion scrappage scheme. And also aiming to kind of hold on to this way beyond its 40-year mark, getting past class car status and driving it freely around London. But a few changes in my circumstances means that this will now have to be up for sale at some point. It does need a bit of work here and there. And before we go on the styling, I should mention as well, there is a few faults this car. So it's got a slightly blowing exhaust, and the rear bumper needs to be reattached on the side. For some reason it's come loose, I'm not entirely sure why. And the front tyre, for some reason, occasionally loses air. It's not a slow puncture, I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I pump it up and it lasts me about a month before it then loses air again. But everything else in this car works brilliantly. It's mechanically fantastic. Put a new exhaust on it and it really just drives like a normal car. It really is a fantastic car. But it's also brilliant to drive. So it's not just a normal car, it's a much better car than a normal car in today's world. There's a lot to talk about. So let's move on to the styling.
You splash
P10 Primera. For me, one of my favourite parts of any of the P10 Primera, including the hatchbacks and the pre-facelifts, has always been the styling. I think the styling is a masterclass of Nissan. It was always claimed to be a bit dull and a bit boring, and I can kind of see where they're coming from, but I like it, and I think it's very much a product of the early 1990s Japanese/European design. You really do see that. For me, what really does appeal to me about this car is its clean sheet look. You know, you've got oily, smooth curves at some way, but it's not too overly done, not bulbous, it's not too flashy or gimmicky. It's just designed to be pragmatic, and it looks magnificent. It really does. So I'll start with the front end, for example. Like I said, you've got this very smooth bonnet, oily smooth in fact, with just two simple lines at the front for the contours that go nicely into the grille. Then you have these headlights. They wrap around a little bit, but they're nothing too much. Being an older car, you've got the separated indicators, albeit no indicators. That was in the Japanese model. You also find that you have the lovely, smooth, slightly curved front headlights. Again, this is a world away from the Nissan Bluebird, which had it all completely square. Everything was completely square on the Bluebird. Again, it looked like it was designed in a maths book with a ruler. But this doesn't feel like that as much. It feels like it was done on a clean sheet. And you can see that with these lovely kind of curved, but yet smooth and still kind of straight lace front headlights. Now, the grille was slightly different because this is the facelift model, but the grille on the pre-facelift did actually accentuate the Nissan badge, but they did it even more so in the facelift. They gave these chrome inserts, give it kind of a nostril effect. To me, it kind of like has a hint of BMW with the kidney grills, and the front end has a hint of the Alfa Romeos, the kind of V shape at the front. But this being Nissan, they did it their own way, and it does look nice in this particular car, but I prefer the pre-facelift nonetheless. And then you have this wonderful black strip. This basically a rubbing strip, basically. They've molded it in nicely into the bumper, again, something we don't have in today's car designs. And because it's a sportier model, you actually have a deepened front lip at the bottom end of the bumper. It makes the bumper feel really kind of big and large, but essentially you've got this lovely squared off fence, big, aggressive, yet squared off. And it's something you just don't see anymore. In today's world, when you have faster, sportier models, it's much beefier, the vents pretty much take over. It's huge, in fact. This is actually very, very proportional to the rest of the front end, and it actually looks fantastic. And with a slight little, front bumper skirt, should we say, it makes the car look kind of stancy and gives it a little bit of a muscular look, despite actually looking like a pleasant, happy car, to be honest. I really like the style in this car. I think Nissan absolutely worked magic with this car in terms of its styling, especially from the front end. And ironically, when it comes to the P12, one of my biggest criticisms is the styling. I think it was the complete opposite. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. It was trying to be like a Japanese-French car. It was based on a Laguna, but it really did feel like a Japanese Laguna, and that was not in a good way. In fact, the Laguna at the time was a lot better looking, but I digress. You've got a lovely front end, like I mentioned, with a squared off air vent, specific to this model, because it's a sportier model. They all had a very nice, clean stance to them. So, like I said, with the front end, absolutely magnificent. Now, before I carry on to the sides, I just want to say this particular model, unfortunately, had the previous owner before me, did actually have a little bit of a side swiping issue. So, you got a dent, a very nice, neat, straight dent nonetheless, but unfortunately a dent on both the side doors on this particular car, and it was badly resprayed afterwards. There is no rust as a result of it, thankfully. It does need to be repaired, and actually my ambition was to take it to a body shop and get it done and dusted, but I've never had the time to get around to it, and now obviously it's not going to be happening as it's going to be going soon. Nonetheless, I'll continue with this particular car because you've got, like I said, you've got the wonderful headlights at the front that's kind of cut in really nicely to the kind of sculpted bodywork on the side. I mean, there's a very low belt line, and it's very smooth. It's almost sculpted into the bodywork. It's just everything. The only way I could describe this car is oily smooth. That's all it is. It's oily smooth, and it really is fantastic. And in fact, these wheels really complement this fantastic bodywork of the car. You also have these side skirts as well, which again give the car a stance of muscularness to it. But again, there's not really much. That's at fault with the side design. In fact, if anything, I think the side design of this car has aged fantastically. You can see you've got the black strips, rubbing strips running from both doors, from the front to the back of the doors. And it kind of gives the car a bit more of a stance look. So you have the stance look and you have the muscular look from the side skirts. Really good design. And obviously you've got the blacked out glass house at the top, proportional, layered, multi-layered in this case, and smooth looking. Nissan has really done a good looking design here with their Saloon model. Now the hatchback's slightly different. The hatchback still looks good, but I prefer the Saloon. I think a lot of people do prefer the Saloon, but again, horses for courses, each their own. But I like the overall side styling of the car. And as you can see, like I said, you've got these fantastic alloys that match up beautifully with this bodywork. In fact, it's very 1990s, early 1990s kind of smoothed off alloys as well. Love it. You've got the black paneling that continues all the way around to the other side of the car. And if I bring camera Lady Laura back to the back end of the vehicle, I think this is where the Saloon really excels over the hatchback. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the hatchback too. It's not exactly an ugly car, but the taillights just look clunky, whereas this actually looks fantastic. Where do I start from? So in terms of the taillights, this is the facelift model. So you do have smoked rear light clusters for the indicators and reverse lights, whereas the pre-facelift didn't have that. I like gingicators though, so to be honest, I kind of prefer the pre-facelift ones. But again, horses for courses in it. I think these smoked taillights really suit this particular SRI model. I also love the SRI badge. It's just very distinctive and unusual. It's almost like I don't know, like a heart shape or something. Whatever it is, it's just really, really cool. That's just me being a bit weird. I actually really like the badge. In the typical 1990s fashion, you have tail lights, number plate, tail lights. Why don't we have that anymore? It makes the car look lowered in stance. You have a nice strong line here. Really brings the car lower. And you have this fantastic wing, obviously. Really makes the car look sporty as well. In fact, I think the spoiler really does complement this fantastic model. All spoilers on P10 Primeras always look good, especially this particular one anyway. I know sometimes they do flat spoilers. But irrespective, the styling of the rear end is fantastic. The hatchback doesn't look too bad, but the tail lights make it look clunky and a bit odd. And they did resolve that in the P11. They give it essentially the same tail lights as the Saloon. And obviously, I love a good black rubbing strip myself, and this does have that in spades. Really, really good. Then obviously being the sporty model, inspired by the EGT and the EZX, you've got this lovely spoiler at the bottom as well. Spoiler at the top, spoiler at the bottom, everything beautiful in between, and it looks magnificent. I think it's an absolute crying shame that so little of these cars are left. On a styling note alone, this is one of Nissan's finest hours. And I know people will say, what about the GTR and the Skylines? I'm not talking about those cars. They're fantastic cars. But I'm talking about as a bog standard passenger range, the P10 Primera as a Saloon was one of the best Nissans ever produced. In terms of styling, definitely. But I'm sure people will disagree in the comments. Please leave in the comments. Anyway, so the interior on the P10 Primera, I think is a little bit, I like the styling, but the rear seats are cramped. They just are. The interior is not bad. It actually looks okay. It could have been a bit better for a 1990s car, but it's okay. I like the trim of the seats in this SRI model. It's a hint of colour, but reality is it is pretty straightforward. A little bit somber side actually for a Nissan and for a 1990s family saloon car. But I love the interior and it is fairly comfortable. I just wish I had a bit more space at the rear. P10, I love it anyway, but this particular one is quite special being the SRI model. It comes with a few extra goodies like leather steering wheel, for example, a much nicer leather gear stick. And at the front end, you've got this kind of, you've got the darkened dials, but you've got this lovely grey surround, light grey. It's almost a silvery surround with the word SRI in it, just to remind you in a really special car. And I think it looks fantastic. It really does. Now, don't get me wrong, it also has special fabrics in the seats. So you have ever so slight blue and red stitching within the kind of woven into the kind of grey seats, but it's not too enthusiastic looking. It just looks good for a 1990s car. It's kind of a nice balance between something from the 1990s and something that you have in a modern day car, or at least what you hope to have in a modern day car. I know nowadays modern day cars are a sea of black, but the colours of the seats are fantastic. I really like it. The interior, the dashboard is magnificent. It is a bit plain looking on the main fascia of the dash, I will give it that. Overall, a fantastic car with a very, very good interior. Well done, Nissan. Really like it. In terms of the way this car drives, I mean, there's only one way for me to describe the way this car drives, and that's terrific. This car is brilliant. I mean, it really has plenty of punch. It really handles really well. So what do I mean by the plenty of punch? Well, bear in mind, this is only a 1.6 GA16 engine. When the Primera originally was released in 1990, it came with a 1.6 carburetted engine, which was just a bit weak. And then I think they came with a catted version, which was completely hopeless. But by the phase 3 facelift, they did actually introduce 1.6 GA16 with 100 brake horsepower. With about 100 brake horsepower, 100 pound-foot of torque, I believe. But again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong with that. Those numbers don't really do any justice to this car. It's just the way it delivers its power. It's fantastic for a little 1.6. It's brilliant. It's very, very nippy. Goes around corners as you probably can tell. It's brilliant. And yet at the same time, There's no weight on it. It feels like I'm handling the car. It's a lot lighter. I mean, I've got a Mark 6 Ford Fiesta, but it feels, well, very, very light for what it is. This feels the same, albeit it's a much bigger vehicle. It's several classes above in terms of its size. It's fantastic. There's hardly any weight on the axles or on the wheels. The handling is pin sharp, it's precise. The precision is fantastic in this car. It really is. The chassis is light and nimble. I mean, this handles as fun as a rear-wheel drive, but yet it has the kind of the grip and the kind of security you get on a four-wheel drive. It's just a magnificent car. This is one of the best cars I've ever driven. It really, really is. And with a peppy little 1.6, it has all the pep to go with it. And I appreciate a 2-litre SR20 engine, or even the 2-litre EGTs will be much faster and probably more fun. But the 1.6 is more than enough and more than capable for this wonderful chassis. This wonderful, wonderful car. I absolutely adore it, and I'm absolutely gutted I'm going to get rid of this car because, well, it's just one of those things. I've had a few years of it and I absolutely love it. The drive is absolutely, absolutely magnificent. There is a slight downside though, and I'm going to come to a stop because I really do need to highlight it. Because this is the SRI model, and because it's got that, has that kind of sporting setup, and you've got slightly firmer seats, it's almost like a Recaro setup to these seats. Not quite Recaro's, but it definitely feels a lot more body hugging than your standard Primera. But because it has that sporting setup and that sporting feel to it, it's not the most comfortable car. I guess it's a trade-off really, because it does handle absolutely brilliantly. But yeah, it really does feel a little bit on the firm side. Right now I'm caning this car on the wonderful Essex country lanes. It's fan-bleeding-tastic. Wonderful, absolutely magnificent. Peppy engine, lightweight body, excellent chassis, super sharp steering, pin sharp kind of squirt and point, off you go. Absolutely wonderful, brilliant round corners, really good fun round corners actually. I absolutely love it. This is so much fun. This is absolutely brilliant. It's just magnificent. I know that exhaust is blowing, but it does sound brilliant. It's a brilliant, brilliant car this is. Part of the review where I really have to give my score for this car, but I have to give some explanation, of course. I mean, there's a lot to talk about this particular car. There is a few foibles to this car. Yes, being an older car, I had to use E5 petrol only. You don't want to take a risk by using E10. Interior space is a bit on the cramped side, especially in that rear. I'm sorry, but it's just not good enough. And the interior, I like the colours and I like the styling, but it is a bit on the dull side. I mean, come on, it's the 1990s. They could have made it something a bit more interesting, but it's not really the car's fault. A lot of Japanese cars had the kind of same dull interior. I hate to say that, but it's just the case. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. And in this case, it's no different. But taking those foibles aside, because let's be honest, they're very small stuff. And I should also mention it's a little bit firm in the ride, and that also can ruin it a little bit around town. But again, they're small stuff. This is a magnificent car. Why? Well, for a start, it handles magnificently. Delivery of power is brilliant for a car like this. It's a fantastic engine. And yet you have all the reliability and the excellent fuel economy you expect from a 1.6 Nissan of that era. These were fantastic, and let's be honest, these were pre-Renault Nissans, so they're super reliable as well. But these, as an overall package, were truly magnificent. Plus, this particular model being the SRI model, you've got this very unique, distinctive paintwork called Cobalt Blue. There's a lot about this car that makes it, well, wonderful in the eyes. And ultimately, you have that exclusive factor. There's only about 5 or 6 left in the whole UK of these particular models. These are rare. These are desirable. These are cool. These are fantastic cars. I'm really gutted to sell it, to be honest. I love this car. But for that reason, I'm going to have to give it a good score because I think it's a fantastic car. This car, without a doubt, this car is a 10 out of 10 car. This is a brilliant car. Foibles aside, I mean, there's not enough to knock the score out of it being a 10. This is brilliant. This is one of Nissan's finest hours, and it's such a shame Nissan don't make cars like this anymore. It's a shame we don't get many cars like this at all anymore. What happened to the car industry? These were interesting. They had a reputation of being dull, and this really wasn't. This is really interesting. I love this car. Full 10 out of 10. Brilliant car, and I'm really sorely going to miss it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my content. I hope you enjoyed my channel. If you like this video, please don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to my channel. It helps me out growing as well. And in terms of the rest of my footage, I have more footage coming. So I'll see you later. Thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.